Hello everyone, welcome back. So again, my director's been giving me some more helpful advice about what we can do to make my channel more popular, and apparently I've got to make the video titles much more clickable so I can get more views. So today we're going to be having a look at the top 10 most hyped fragrances that Jeremy Fragrance made me buy to get more compliments, Ultimate Cat Fail Edition. Peace out. No, that's it. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not working with you anymore. You're fired. Now, peace off. Hello everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be having a look at what I think are the five, it's actually, in the end it'll be six because I'm going to put a little honourable mention category in there, but let's say the five essential men's fragrance categories that you need to know about and maybe have one of each, or at least consider trying one of each style out and thinking about one fragrance from each of these categories that might be your favourite. And I'm going to give you one or actually two examples at least in each case from these examples. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I think when we look on Fragrantica, and sometimes people, including me on the reviews, say this fragrance is classified as an aromatic fougere, or this is an oriental woody. I don't feel that these fragrance categories really give us a very good description of how the fragrance will smell these days. If they ever did, they may be perfectly valid and correct in how the fragrance is composed. For perfume experts, they're going to understand a little bit more than the average person from those kind of categories. But things like, for example, Dior's Sauvage, a very modern, popular, fresh scent, is, I think, characterized as an aromatic fougere fragrance. But so, for example, is Rive Gauche Pour Homme from 2003 from Yves Saint Laurent, which much more of a barbershop smell. They don't smell really anything alike. I might be right in thinking even Coros from Yves Saint Laurent, the 80s Powerhouse, with animalic musk, is also an aromatic fougere. So there's a category that really doesn't help us understand very much at all about what a fragrance will smell like. So I'm going to try and give us rather more accessible categories that explain what kind of smell you're going to get and maybe its function in your life for these fragrances. So let's go and see which ones I've come up with. Let me know what you think of my idea, my choices here. So the first fragrance that I'm going to go with is maybe perhaps the most essential one, and it's going to be called the Citrus Woody, otherwise known as the fresh masculine or fresh manly. Let's call it the fresh manly category. So obvious that this would be a good idea, a fresh masculine scent. What kind of things are examples of this? Well, some examples would include things like Dior's Sauvage in the blue bottle, the Eau de Toilette, or maybe the Eau de Parfum too, probably falls into that category. So these are going to be fragrances that probably, in fact, certainly have a nice citrus presence in the top notes and probably a woody element in the base, giving them a little bit of depth, but are predominantly fresh, but can be recognized as masculine. And these are going to be really great all-round kind of scents that you could wear in almost all situations. So I've picked two what I think are really good examples, and the first one is going to be Creed Aventus. Now, I've almost fallen into the trap recently, I think, of not mentioning this much because a lot of people have kind of reacted because it was so hyped up and everyone talked about it, and then people are leaving it out of lists. But it is a really good choice if you can afford it. I've just got a 30ml bottle there and a decant somewhere else. So this one opens up with lovely pineapple, crisp bergamot, French apple, so loads of lovely crisp fresh, and it is also French, lovely fresh citrus notes, and there's also a nice bergamot element that's someone in a review I think said you're missing out if you don't mention what a great bergamot note there is in this one. Then it's got patchouli in the base, it's got vanilla, it's got quite a complex list of notes, but one of the other key players, of course, is the birchwood, which is a wood note with a slightly smoky accord, but there's also a really nice muskiness about this, more of a fresh, clean, white musk type of feel. So a really great all-rounder with good performance, very high quality ingredients, and a really good choice for the fresh masculine scent or the citrus woody category. Terre d'Hermès would be another example that I would put in this one. Dunhill Icon that I've mentioned that I really like. But let's go with something completely different, but still falls in the same category for me, and that's going to be Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme from 1994. I've got an older bottle with a sticker here. I think the modern version would, of course, still fall in the same category. Some people say it doesn't smell as good. I'm hoping to do a thorough comparison soon, but my old one certainly smells great. Again, opens up with really fresh, zesty citrus notes. I think we've got bergamot, mandarin and or tangerine, depending where you look. And then in the base, lots of herbal notes. So I think it is, again, an aromatic fougere officially, but the key thing to understand with this one is that it's fresh, it's masculine, and it's got a woody base, vetiver, very strong kind of masculine undercurrent with this one, with the interesting twist of a little bit of a fresh tobacco leaf note in this one. So really, really nice all-rounder. May not smell really, really similar to Creed's Aventus, but it's that same kind of thing. Fresh citrus with some woods, masculine, crowd-pleasing. Everyone should have at least one and maybe more of these types of fragrance. So there's your citrus, woody or fresh masculine scent, one of the key varieties. Now, for something completely different, I decided to give a category the name of the handbag scent or the iris scent. So recently, well, not that recently, but in historical terms, fairly recently came along the idea of using iris as a really strong and present and notable note in a men's fragrance from Dior Homme back in 2005 from Olivier Paulgy Perfumier. So the iris-based scent since then has become a very popular thing. Loads of flankers to Dior Homme, and the iris note in that one, although it's categorized, I think, as a woody floral musk, which doesn't really help the average person understand how it smells. It has this lipstick-esque vibe because iris was often used in lipstick in old makeup. So it smells a little bit like you're opening up your mum's handbag, people say, and that just somehow seems a really good description of what the iris-based scents are like. I don't own Dior Homme, but I really like this one actually. Was talked about for a while and then sort of faded off the radar of the Fragcom a little bit. Valentino Uomo, the original Eau de Toilette, the intense version is also great. Funnily enough, I don't think iris is officially listed in a note, but it's by Olivier Paulgy, the man who did Dior Homme, and it definitely, I think, has that iris lipsticky feel, along with a little gourmand twist in this one. There's myrtle, a nice herbal note in this one, but there's also a hazelnut chocolate. It's called Gianduja or Gianduja cream from Italy, a bit like Nutella. It's got a tiny bit of a gourmandy sweet undertone, but a really, really nice lipsticky, waxy note that somehow is very nice and works as a very modern metrosexual men's fragrance. For another much darker, richer example, you could go for Dior Homme Parfum, and this one again has that lipstick really clearly recognizable, a little bit similar to Dior Homme Intense, but this one ramps up the intensity even more so. So we've got sandalwood and crucially more of a leather note in this one, giving it a much darker, more masculine feel, but still with that waxy iris lipstick-esque note that I really enjoy. So I think, yeah, worthy of a category all of its own. Other examples in a more fresh, user-friendly kind of area would be Prada's L'Homme and L'Homme Intense, and now the Prada L'Homme Low. All very office-friendly, fresh takes, but still have that waxy, lipsticky iris notes done rather well. Moving on then, next up, we're going to have what I'm going to call the sweet masculine. So just simply the sweet masculine fragrance. What do I mean by that? So, of course, a lot of fragrances recently have been much sweeter for men than they used to be in the old days. It's become okay ever since you got Dupe on, perhaps in 1989. But recent good examples, or at least popular ones, 1 Million I would place in that category. Paco Rabanne's 1 Million, not a big favourite of mine, takes it a bit too bubblegummy for me, and I don't enjoy it that much. But it's okay. It's a nice, sweet, crowd-pleasing fragrance, particularly for young people. But other examples that I do own, I would put Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme. Dolce & Gabbana the one, I meant to say. Sorry about that. In the sweet masculine category. It has a little bit of a tobacco note, but certainly a vanillic kind of sweetness in this one as well. And although sort of fresh in a way, there's also ginger, so maybe you could include a spicy element as a common theme in these. Sweet and spicy, they often are, these sweet masculine popular modern scents. Really quite nice, but not a huge favourite with me, but a lot of people rate it. Performance supposed to be poor. You could always buy an atomizer and respray. Another great example, of course, La Nuit de l'Homme from 2009 from Yves Saint Laurent, and that has a nice cardamom spicy element. It's got lavender in it, and there's certainly something sweet about this. I think one negative review by Colin Maillard, one of the big Bass Notes reviewers, said it was the night of Diet Coke or something, and it smells a bit like a Coke maybe. But that's a pleasant smell. It's quite likeable. I enjoy wearing it now and again. And I have a slightly older version from 2012, certainly a good one in the masculine sweet category. And maybe my favourite at the moment, Darej, I would place Darej from Rasasi in this category too. Another sweet one, loads of spice and cardamom in this one as well, and vanilla. Is an oriental kind of fragrance according to the classification, but sweet masculine would be a definition that I would find more accessible for the ordinary person trying to understand it. So Darej Rasasi, a great cheapie in that category, the sweet masculine fragrance. Moving on then, we're going to have the barbershop fragrance. A big favourite of mine, done loads of lists on this. I'll try and keep it brief therefore. Barbershop fragrance and or aromatic fougere, the true fougere type of smell. So if you think of Brut by Fabergé or something like that, these kind of soapy, mossy, green, maybe a little bit powdery scents with definitely usually a lavender prominent note in them. Relevant today, I think, because where I am in North London, loads of barbershop type places are springing up with these big expensive looking chairs from the old-fashioned style barbershop kind of world. It's become a thing again. Of course, a lot of guys have beards now, and I think there's a bit of a thing about this kind of grooming. Wet shaving is becoming more popular. Those kind of things, I guess. Well, wet shaving is more for people without beards, I guess, because you're shaving the beard off. But anyway, a barbershop scent. You should have one of these, even if you're 21 and you want to smell popular. They can be really nice. For an expensive-ish niche one, why not try 1725 from Histoire de Parfum? So this one has the almost obligatory lavender element, a powdery feel in this one, a nice sweetness, and it's got a little licorice note in there, along with bergamot and citrus in the opening, sandalwood, cedar, and amber in the base. Overall, a powdery, quite sort of dandified barbershop type smell that is really worth trying out. So I really like the barbershop genre, and that is a very interesting one with a little bit more sweetness than some that I really enjoy. If you don't want to spend big bucks, you can go right down to the super inexpensive Pinard Clubman. This is a classic, it's been out for years and years, extremely cheap, comes in a plasticky bottle. It's got lavender in there, there's a little bit of a vanillic element, definitely a powdery feel, and a certain sort of musky, manly element in there, but definitely clean and fresh and powdery, and literally is the kind of thing that you can smell in barbershops. It smells like you've been in the barbershop and they're spraying this maybe on your neck after they shave you. Pinard Clubman. Get yourself that, maybe get an atomizer if you don't like to splash, and it's your barbershop scent, and I think it would be pleasing even in the modern world to most people. It's a really inoffensive but slightly interesting smell. So that's the barbershop category. Come on guys, you've got to have a barbershop scent in your collection. Next up, I'm going to go with the dark sweet category. Okay, so we had the sweet masculine category, which was a kind of very approachable, fresh-ish maybe, but mixed with sweetness, stuff like maybe 1 Million or Dolce & Gabbana the one. But for the dark sweet genre, what have we got there? Okay, so I'm going to pick a real classic from the niche game, and that's Xerjoff Naxos. So this one has tobacco in it, and it's got a bit more dark and rich feel than the more approachable light designer sweet fragrances out there. I would also place things like Tobacco Vanille from Tom Ford in this category, probably Noir de Noir from Tom Ford as well. There might be some oud in these. This one doesn't have it. They might be boozy. Things like Bentley Intense for men would be a good one, but this one, really exquisite. It's got a little bit of freshness in the top with some bergamot and citrus, but then we've got cinnamon and tobacco and honey, giving it a very rich, alluring, sweet, kind of unisex. I know ladies who wear this and it really works well for either sex, but there's a certain darkness about this one that I think places it in this richer, darker, more seductive, sweet fragrance category, the dark sweet fragrance category I'm christening it. Another example, if you want to go more retro, Opium Pour Homme from Yves Saint Laurent. My example here is an Eau de Parfum from a few years back, the older formula. Bourbon vanilla in this one. You've got cassis, a black currant note, and Sichuan pepper, very, very dark, rich as balsamic notes, and Atlas cedarwood, but this one definitely a powerhouse and dark and seductive. Opium the name, and it is indeed an almost narcotic or intoxicating kind of scent. So the dark sweet category, that's my next one on the list. Changing things completely, here's another category that I think is essential to at least consider. How's my little pocket square going there? Here's another category that I think is essential to consider, and this is going to be what I'm calling the soapy citrus category. So pretty obvious what this is going to mean. This is the really transparent, soapy, fresh fragrances. Things like Mugler cologne would be an example, that just make you smell clean. They're probably going to be unisex. They just smell soapy, and they can be really useful for the office or hot summer's days. Great example then. Let's start with the expensive one. Of course, Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino would be perhaps the definitive one from the niche world, and it just smells of a posh, updated, more expensive version of 4711 cologne, the real cheapie that lasts about 5 minutes. Very nice neroli and combination of citrus notes with a soapy undertone, Excellent, a little bit expensive for what it is, but it is a high quality rendition of that style. So Neroli Portofino, just great for the office or summer days or evenings, but it's not huge in projection, but it does have that really high quality soapy aura. Another example that I've mentioned before, but not much lately, Agua de Colonia Concentrada, the classic Spanish cologne. Brilliant, lovely, fresh, super realistic lemony citrus opening that I love on this one. So Agua de Colonia Concentrada from the house of Alvarez Gomez would be a great one that you can just spray absolutely liberally. Very cheap eau de cologne. Doesn't last ages, but it's not as bad as some people might think. And you know, if you want an inexpensive option in that category, there are tons of others. Ferrari, Bright Neroli. I think that's a category in and of itself. Some people might say, well, that's just the citrus aromatic category, but I'm specifically talking about the very soapy, very transparent, fresh, citrusy ones there. So I'm calling them citrus soapy. So those were my 5 categories. Oh yeah, this one was on the table, I forgot to mention it. Mont Blanc individual, I'd probably just place that one, for example, in the fresh masculine category alongside things like Aventus. It is quite fresh. Bit more sweetness than some of the others, but that fresh linen thing, it's not really just soapy though, so I'd put that in the fresh masculine category. Great all-rounder as well. Now here's an optional category, and this is the retro powerhouse. So some of these are still being made and on our shelves. A lot of the classics are still out there, and let's go for the big bad ultimate one. Ted Lapidus Pour-Homme from 1987, absolute beast. People like Lex Ellis and Fragrance Matt have mentioned this one a lot. Absolute powerhouse fragrance, everything but the kitchen sink in the notes. It's very musky. It's similar to Yves Saint Laurent's Chorus in many ways. It also has a pineapple note, but you won't necessarily pick that up very obviously. It's got leather, it's got cinnamon, it's got some spices and honey, I think, and sweetness, but it's really, really pungent and masculine and strong, and it sort of takes barbershop scent core and then adds in a lot more and sort of a musky kind of aromatic undertone with this very, very heavy masculine retro smell. You might want to dare to have a scent from this category in your arsenal, but it's maybe not essential. That's why I'm making an honourable mention as my 6th one. Wasn't sure if I could think of a great niche example of a retro powerhouse, but I think just about squeezing in probably to that category maybe, although it's a bit barbershop-ish, is Bois de Portugal from Creed from 1987. This one a little bit more nice to smell to the average nose than Lapidus Pour-Homme. Bergamot in the opening, you've got sandalwood in the base, you've got Creed's famous ambergris, lavender, and a really nice kind of dusty, woody accord, a little bit old-fashioned, definitely smelling. Very powerful for me in projection, eau de parfum. So I'll put that in the retro powerhouse category. So those were my categories. Let's just run through them again. So we had the fresh manly, otherwise known as citrus woody. I'm not sure what order I did them in, but then we had the iris or handbag category. We had the barbershop fougere. We had the sweet masculine, and we had the soapy citrus clone, and we had the dark sweet fragrance category. Also, the retro powerhouse, if you dare. So what do you think of my categories? Obviously there are some fragrances that would be hard to put in any of them, and they may not be the ideal way of describing things, but I think they give us a little bit more idea of what things smell like than some of the categories where people say chypre, aromatic fougere, oriental woody, and then you have 2 fragrances maybe on Fragrantica that smell really identical to everybody, and they're in completely different categories. So it never makes much sense. I'm not saying that mine are better categories, but they're easier for the man in the street, or you, the viewer perhaps, and me, to understand in terms of how things smell. So let me know what you thought of my idea, what you thought of these different categories, any others that I need to have. I didn't put gourmands in, obviously that's another category that exists. So please let me know of ones that you think are essential that I've left out, or what you thought of the way I've categorised men's fragrances that we can get today. As ever, thanks very much for watching. Remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.